Hello and welcome. Today we're going to do a nice summer drink, white grape and cherry Auga Fresca. First, I'd like to thank everyone who's subscribed and who has been watching the videos and sharing them. That means the world to me, and if you haven't already, there'll be many more videos like this and different breakdowns of kitchen techniques and tools. So if you enjoy videos like this, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to make sure you know when they come out. For our drink, we are going to be using a cup and a half of cherries, a cup and a half of white grapes, quarter cup of sugar, and about 4 cups of water. And with final approval, not 1 but 2 on our ingredients, we're ready to go. Although one of the inspectors was just an ear this time. Beginning with our cherries, I'll show you 2 different ways to get them. If you have a pitter like this, you'll be able to get them out very easily. I'll show you a couple just so you can see what it looks like. There is another way if you do not happen to have a pitter, and I will show you that, where you just use a knife, and it is varying degrees of messy. If you do have the option to have a pitter, it's really good. But if you don't eat that many cherries or stone fruits, you're probably not going to need one. You can just use the knife method, and that's probably going to work out fine for you. This is just the easiest, cleanest way, and if you want your cherries to have a nice visual appeal, this is what helps them stay with that look and appearance of whole cherries mostly. Alright, so beginning with the least messy method of using a knife to do this, if your cherries are a few days old and not super fresh, you can actually just cut in a circle around it, twist it open, and then pull out the pit with your fingers. It's messy, but oddly enough, it's still the least messy of the 2 versions. The other way you can do is cut that initial top slice and then smash it down, and that'll give you a place where you can reach in and pit cherry. But as you just saw me motion, it sprays everywhere when you do this. So if you have a choice, you kind of want to go with the first method. This is the first method at the way you shouldn't do it, which is in the air. Don't hang stuff in the air and try and cut it like that. That is a good way to cut yourself. Thankfully I didn't this time. And again, the fresher your cherries, the harder it is going to be to get out the pit without a pitter. Okay, so once we've pitted all of our cherries and washed up our grapes and anything else we're going to put in, we're going to want to put that in a blender or a food processor. It will work in a food processor, but not quite as well. I generally put the water in first because it tends, if you put the sugar in first, it tends to fill the entire area below where the blades are, and so for a brief moment at the beginning you won't actually have anything mixing except for the sugar into the water. So you definitely don't want to do that. That's why I put all the water in first and put the sugar in very last, so it kind of has to settle over everything. And then from there, just making sure you've got your lid on very, very tight, and you're going to want to pulse it just for a second or two at a time for about a minute or so. I did a little more than a second or two here, and in my case that was actually not a great idea because my lid wasn't on as quite as well as I thought it was, so it kind of seeped out a little bit on the top. Thankfully it doesn't show. Basically what you're trying to do here is break down all of the grapes and the cherries into sort of a pulpy mess. You're just breaking them down until they mostly release the liquid that they have inside them. And that's what we want there. We want that liquid because we're going to strain out most of the solids, and don't worry, I can tell you a good use for it, and it is very nice. But what we want to do here, the reason we're using the blender and mixing like this, even food processors, as I said, would work, but the idea here is that we're going to shred all of that wet grape and cherry, and then it gets dispersed into the water, which it does very well. One quick note, if you have frozen cherries, they actually work better than fresh in this thing, so pre-pitted frozen cherries is almost always the way to go. The reason for that is the ice crystals forming have already made it very porous, and now it already will be losing its juices faster, so it'll take less blend time, or the same blend time with slightly better results. Alright, once it's all blended up, if you look at the spout on your blender, or just if there's a place to pour on your food processor, if there isn't, you're going to want to take a sieve, similar to what I'm doing here, and put it over a large bowl, because that's going to make it so that if, like mine, it just kind of pours all out at once, that it doesn't spill all over the counters or anywhere. And if you do just a sieve as I'm doing here, you're going to have a certain amount of pulp. Not a huge amount, but just a decent amount. That's not really bad in my opinion, but if you do not want any pulp at all and you want it to be just 100% liquid, what you'll do is take cheesecloth and fold it over about 3 times. So you end up with about 3 layers of cheesecloth, and then just put it strain it through that after you've done this. The reason you would do them in that order is this is going to get out all the very large stuff, and your 3 layers of cheesecloth are going to get out the very fine particles. So if you tried to start with the cheesecloth, you would end up taking a lot more time with that part, simply because the cheesecloth itself would get clogged up so fast. Now, what I've been doing with the spoon here is that every time it starts to slow down on the dripping and everything, I'm just going to scrape it back from this. And again, that's why you always kind of want to start with a sieve. Now, this material is actually really tasty. It's lost a lot of flavor, but not a huge amount. So what I like to do with this is to either mix it into like vanilla ice cream, or mix it into a frosting. Just kind of make yourself a little fruit puree almost, because it is just that. It's a fruit puree at this point. So don't throw that away. You definitely want to use it, and it makes a great topper for ice cream. You can mix it in ice cream or top ice cream with it, and it is fantastic and tastes great. Since I used a big bowl, I'm going to need to take a funnel and kind of use that to help put it in my decanter. Essentially, it turned out to be a really nice looking decanter that I didn't even realize that we had. So, all you really want to do there is just slowly pour it so that you're not spilling anything. Don't overload the funnel. It seems like basic advice, but I've seen people do it so many times that I really do feel like you kind of have to say it. Just pour at a measured pace so that the funnel is never really filling up with any of our liquid, and it's all just kind of passing through it without collecting too much. Alright, and with that, we have finished our simple drink here. Now, this is actually a really nice tasting drink, but I will say this. If you use red cherries, it comes out the best. If you were to use like Rainier's or other varieties of cherries that aren't quite as impactful in the flavor, you might have to add a little bit more of them and reduce the grape amount, because the grape flavor is going to be very strong no matter what you do. You could easily swap these ingredients out or just use one. If you wanted to make it a strawberry, that's fantastic. I've done it from watermelon before. That's amazing. It can pretty much be done with any fresh fruit and about the same sort of ratios. And with that, I hope you have a great day and a great meal.